Hi, everyone, and welcome back to Careers at the End of the World. My name is Jenn Walker Wall. I am a career consultant, coach, resume writer, and founder of Work Wonders Careers. And I want to talk about something a little different today. I'm going to give the traditional job search for full-time, in-house W-2 employment. I'm going to deprioritize that and talk about something that has become a topic of increasing frequency, if I may, which is about self-employment or freelancing as an alternative to the job search process, short-term or long-term. In 2024, this year, I have seen more small business owners as clients than I ever have before. And I'm being really generous when I say small business owners. Some people have like an LLC, proprietorship type situation. Some people are freelancing and maybe don't consider themselves business owners. But people who have been making money through their work outside of a job, I've seen a lot of those people this year on my client roster, much more than I have in previous years. And I'm not surprised because I'm also a small business owner, and I know that the last couple years have been sort of bananas. Just to share, up until 2020, my revenue from my business was like slowly trending upwards, but also like pretty consistent month to month. So it was like a slow income, and that was good. That was good enough for me. That was good enough. And since 2020, it has been like major peaks and valleys. Partly I attribute that to global events. Partly I attribute that to exhaustion and burnout. Partly I attribute that to inflation. I guess we're going to call it inflation. I think it's largely corporate price gouging. I prefer to call it price gouging personally. And so it's been a little chaotic and unpredictable. So when other business owners come to me and share their experience, I'm like, oh yeah, for real. I feel that. And so I've seen a lot of people who want to go back in-house or are looking for that W-2 employment. And a lot of the time people tell me that the reason they're doing that is because their client roster has dried up. Their referrals have run dry. Longtime client work has dwindled. And the conclusion they come to is that it would be better, easier to go back to a full-time job. And I think if you spoke to some of those people, they tell you like that actually hasn't been that easy to navigate back in-house somewhere, because some of these people have been self-employed for like a very long time, very established. I would consider them very successful. And I also see some other clients who maybe have been job searching for a while, come from a more traditional job background, and would like to consider freelancing or would be open to that, but feel like any energy dedicated to getting clients or restarting a business or starting a business would take away from the job search process. So this episode, I'm just sharing my thoughts on the complementary nature of self-employment and the job search process and how to maximize your chances of getting both employment opportunities and clients. What makes you a successful job seeker? Getting in front of people, applying for jobs, networking is very similar to the behavior that makes you a successful small business owner. You might not be applying for jobs, but ideally, you're putting yourself in front of people on a fairly regular basis. This piece around interaction and relationships and visibility is important for both job seekers and anyone looking for clients or business or professional opportunities outside of like a W-2 job, okay? And so when people are feeling stuck and pulled as if these are two options that are like, fighting for their time and attention, the question I like to ask is like, how could these be complementary activities? Just please think about that question, because sure, applying for a job is not the same thing as trying to land a client in the most literal sense, but in a broader sense, it could be, right? You could turn an opportunity from a job into a freelance one, or just by increasing your visibility and putting yourself out there, right? That behavior, that's really what I'm talking about, is the same. That's what gets people clients. So the first thing I want to just ask is, how could these be complementary endeavors? How can you work toward these in a way that isn't about competing and fighting for your attention, but advances your goal of earning an income and creating some foundation of support for yourself, right? if you're between full-time jobs right now, you probably have a lot of time to fill. As someone who's worked primarily with job seekers in the most traditional sense, I don't know that that's 40 hours a week of work for you to do. And so it makes perfect sense to me that you might carve out some part of your work week to focus on freelance, short-term contract, client building endeavors. There's really nothing that takes away in my view. I think a scenario people often imagine is that they'll have client work and a job offer at the same time and have to figure that out. And they don't want to figure that out. Like they don't want to take on a client and not be able to finish the execution of the contract, which is like very reasonable. But I also feel like that is something that can be negotiated and worked out. And in fact, I've seen clients do that, like when a full-time job offer comes in and they've still got some client work to finish or complete. What's most important is that you do what's best for you, that you cover your bases. If you prefer to be earning an income sooner rather than later, then I would make moves to honor that. Consider all your options. Pursue all those options. See what sticks. A lot of people worry that looking for freelance or contract work will water down, for example, their LinkedIn profile. I don't know that I necessarily see that as the case. I have written LinkedIn profiles for people who are open to freelance and contract work in their field so that it's very congruent and you can say I'm available for short and long-term opportunities. But I've also written them for people who are doing wildly different things, right? Like who have a very solid day job, but are, for example, like wedding photographers or something like that. So all of that can be addressed and is really much more common, I think, than people realize. So sometimes these fears or concerns or like in the process, you just need to give yourself permission to move on, to experiment, to see what happens. I'd much rather clients have the problem of too much client work and a job offer than neither of those things to consider, especially if they're looking to get income and are looking for that kind of continuity in their employment. I want to say a few things to small business owners and freelancers who may be listening here. It's very important to rebuild your ecosystem. And I don't mean just your pipeline, like I really mean your ecosystem. Everything that got me clients before 2020 stopped working in 2020. And everything that got me clients before 2022 stopped working in 2022. And those were both points where I really had to rebuild an ecosystem for myself, reactivate an ecosystem for myself. A lot of people I talk to have worked with people like on a longer term basis, had a lot of referrals coming in, and honestly, same, like that's not dissimilar to some of my work as well. If you're finding that that is drying up and you think your only option is to go back to work, I just want to make sure that if your preference is to stay self-employed, that you've done everything you can to rebuild that ecosystem and ensure that pipeline. As a self-employed person, I totally get why people go back to work. Not just financially, to have someone else pay into your retirement. That's a good reason. But it's so much work and it's so much stress. Like even just doing some contracting work right now, I'm like, wow, someone just hands me work to do and I do it. It's so easy. You don't have to make up your own work to do and then do it, which is a lot more work to do. I enjoy having different opportunities to earn money and work because it helps me think about like what I really enjoy and what I really need and what I want to do next. So I think it can be a good decision for business owners to go back to work. A lot of us create jobs that are not that great to have. A lot of people, if they move beyond the financial aspect of it, I think are looking for collaboration and growth opportunities that like being self-employed doesn't offer in the same way. And I think those are really good, valid reasons to go back to work. Like any reason you have to want to go back to work is a perfectly good one. But I also think it's important if you want to stay self-employed that you have a plan to get clients and to reactivate, re-engage, reestablish an ecosystem. A lot is going on. A lot of things are in flux. And if you're used to working on longer contracts and not having to worry about finding new clients, you can learn those skills I always say running a small business is like job searching all the time. It probably isn't a great selling point, but it is about having to be visible on a consistent basis. It is about having to talk about yourself and your work all the time, which is what professionals do when they're job searching. So I really want to encourage people who want to remain self-employed to look at their professional ecosystem. You have an opportunity that will, quite frankly, take just as much time as applying and landing a job to establish referral partners, people with similar adjacent skill sets, people who work with the same kind of clients. Some of my best referral sources are other career coaches, therapists, former clients. You may need to ask for referrals from former clients. I agree that business was easier before 2020 and 2022. Things have felt very unstable. And quite frankly, I just don't see that going away. If getting a job feels better for you to navigate this unpredictability, by all means, don't let me stop you. In fact, listen to every episode. Let me know how I can help. But I also think people are they're still hiring people. They're still buying services. You may need to just be approaching your ecosystem development more actively and strategically than you've had to before. You're going to have to put in the work one way or the other. And if what you really want is to maintain self-employment, then leave that on the table and do some work there. Because it's very hard to land a job, period. But it's much harder still to land a job if that's not really what you want. And I mean that in every conceivable way. It's going to be very hard to get you to be an active job seeker if what you want is to be fully employed. It's going to be hard to get you to do the work. It might be hard to be a standout candidate and a finalist if you are ambivalent about going back in-house somewhere. So I want you to think about, what do I want? And maybe what you want is to be self-employed, but looking for jobs feels like a piece of this that could offer some stability, and maybe it's temporary. Maybe you just go back in-house until things figure themselves out. Great. I hope they figure themselves out. That's for sure. Leave space open to rebuild that ecosystem, to reinitiate contact with former clients, former referral sources, check in with people. It doesn't have to be any kind of hard sell. You can just see what people are doing, how their projects are going, how their clients are going. Going back to work is always an option. It can be a very good one. It can be a very supportive one. And so can giving some time to your business and breathing life into it. If anyone listening would be interested in more episodes on navigating self-employment as a job seeker, trying to make these sort of decisions, please let me know. Find me on Instagram, email me. This has just been on my mind because it's come up in so many conversations this year that I just wanted to share some thoughts. I don't think these things are polar opposites. I think they're both good options for people who are really looking for income, and there might be more that you can do for those of you who are self-employed to really beef up those referrals, to beef up the business. Both of these endeavors require you to ultimately be visible and talk about yourself. So get good at those. Get used to telling people that you're flexible about what you're looking for, and you could be creating all kinds of different opportunities to come your way. Let me know if you have any thoughts. I'd love to hear from you. Instagram, hit reply to any of my emails. I really relate to the challenges of being a business owner. So I am sending all good wishes and love your way, because it has been an experience, hasn't it? Yes, it's been an experience. And if you are a business owner, you want to go back to work and you need some help on your resume, do take advantage of our Mercury retrograde special. I'm pretty sure by the time this goes live, it will be almost over, but as long as you book by August 17th, you can take advantage of the special. So let me help you with your resume. Let me help you with your job search. Whatever you decide, I'm here to back you up 100%. Thank you for listening, and I hope you guys have a great week. Talk to you soon.